Archaeologists left alarmed by remains unearthed at an ancient site in Norway. Archaeologists left alarmed by remains unearthed at an ancient site in Norway. Archaeologists working in the southeastern part of Norway have made a terrifying discovery after conducting an excavation at a graveyard that dates back several thousand years. The researchers, bewildered by the contents of the graveyard, have struggled to find an explanation for the startling discovery. However, they did notice the unique placement of several large stone circles, which could shed light on the burial practices of ancient Norwegians. The fascination with the Vikings. The Scandinavian nations, found at the furthest reach of northwest Europe, have a rich history that stretches back thousands of years. Despite the modern fascination with the Vikings, to better understand the history of nations such as Norway, we must venture back to a time long before the introduction of longboats that sent shivers down the spines of priests and farmers alike throughout the continent. Researchers strive to better understand ancient Norway. Archaeologists throughout Norway continue to excavate sites of interest in an attempt to better understand the early Germanic-speaking groups and the much older Neolithic inhabitants that predated the so-called Viking period. During an excavation at a site not far from Fredrikstad in southeastern Norway, a team of archaeologists stumbled upon a cluster of 41 stone circles. Charred remains underneath stones in Norway. The circles, comprised of stones meticulously set into place, were first excavated by archaeologists in autumn 2023, per the Museum of Cultural History at the University of Oslo. What lay beneath were the remains of more than 40 graves. Each of the individual stone circles ranged in size from 3 to 6 feet, and within the graves, researchers found broken pottery shards and charred human remains. The remains of children unearthed in Norway. Following a deeper analysis carried out by scientists, they discovered that 39 of the 41 graves at the site contained the burnt remains of children aged 6 and under, according to a statement from the museum. This discovery startled the researchers as they attempted to discern why so many children were buried in one place. The other 2 graves at the site belonged to adults, however, they were placed slightly beyond the boundary of the larger group. Norwegian children buried over the course of hundreds of years. Dating of the remains suggests they were buried over a period of 600 years, stretching from around 800 BCE to 200 BCE. This suggests the children were not buried suddenly but instead over the course of several centuries. The field of children's graves is unique in a Norwegian context, wrote the museum, and opens up many questions to which the answers are still unknown. Why were the children buried in a separate place? Why here? And how did they hold on to this tradition for several hundred years? Archaeologists called to the site before the expansion of local quarry. Archaeologists first discovered the site after scouring the region for evidence of Stone Age activity before the expansion of a local quarry. However, they were shocked when they began unearthing the remains of dozens of graves dating back to the translation period between the Bronze and Iron Ages. New discovery leaves researchers in Norway with many questions. According to the museum, the children's graves were found in an area rich in cultural heritage. They continued, this includes many rock carvings from this period that speak of voyages and sun worship. The newly discovered children's graves open up new questions about the people who lived back then. Head of the excavation in Norway shares her opinion on the discovery. The head of the excavation team, Guro Fossum, shared her thoughts on the discovery during an interview with Science Norway. The researcher revealed that the team had assumed that the stones represented individual graves during their initial inspection. There was something special about the whole site, she added. Gatherings and ceremonies connected to the burials. Fossum detailed the layout of the discovery, stating, the graves are very close together. They must have been in an open landscape, with thoroughfares nearby, so everyone would have known about them. Cooking pits and fireplaces around the site suggest that gatherings and ceremonies were held in connection with burials. She continued, additionally, all the graves were so nice and meticulously crafted. Each stone was sourced from a different location and placed precisely in the formation. We wondered who put in so much effort. Stones laid with great care. Fossum revealed when the researchers received the results that the vast majority of the remains belonged to children. She said, it made sense. This was done with so much care. The dating shows that the burial site was used over a long period, Fossum said in Science Norway, so they couldn't all have died in the same natural disaster, outbreak of disease, or epidemic. The search for answers continues. As Fossum explained, there's still a lot to learn from the site. It doesn't appear that all the vessels were containers for burnt bones, some were placed between the graves, and we are very curious about what was inside them, she said. At present, there's an exhibition at the museum in Oslo that has a reconstruction of one of the stone graves, shedding some light on the mysterious nature of the burials.